Hey everyone, Percy Jules here. So, a while ago I did a video on how to export and import MIDI files from and to Studio One. Now, apparently this video has inspired a viewer to ask an additional question. Now, the name of the viewer is Alisa Fayard, and Alisa, forgive me if I pronounce your name incorrectly. But anyway, the question that Alisa has is, so how do you export a MIDI file from Studio One as an mp3 file? Okay, well, this actually requires a different kind of approach than simply exporting or importing MIDI files, because MIDI files and mp3 files are kind of like apples and oranges in some ways. They're just different kind of files. So there needs to be some kind of conversion somewhere along the way, because an mp3 file is basically an audio file, a digital audio file, whereas a MIDI file does contain some musical information like velocity, pitch, duration of notes, so things like that. But it doesn't contain anything about sound. So you would have to link it to some kind of sound generator, some kind of sound source, like a synthesizer, to create sound. So you would have to kind of feed that MIDI information into that sound source to create something like a melody. And then you would have to render that out as an audio file, as an mp3 file. So that's basically how it works. Now, the way to do this, or at least one way to do this, there might be more, is this. So, as the question is, how do we export a MIDI file as an audio file from Studio One? We first need to bring in a MIDI file to Studio One. Okay, now, as you can see here, I have an empty song, and here I have a MIDI file. So what I can do now is I can just drag this MIDI file onto the canvas, just release it, and you'll see that corresponding tracks will be created. Okay, now let's press play and let's see what happens. The answer is nothing. Now the reason is, this is only the MIDI information, and as I mentioned, we first need to link it to some kind of sound source, some kind of instrument. We haven't done that yet, so that's why you don't hear anything. So let's take the first track, for instance. As you can see, I've labeled it kick. Obviously, this is meant to trigger some kind of kick drum sound. So what we can do, we can bring in an instance of impact, for instance, and just load up some kind of kit. I don't care what kind of kit. Okay, and now let's press play and see what happens. Okay, so that's basically how it works. Now, I'm not going to go over the entire process of linking all these MIDI tracks to instruments. That's for another tutorial maybe. So for now, I'm going to skip ahead to a situation where I've already done that. Okay, just for reference, let's listen to this little song. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with. Anyway, now we need to render it out. Before we do so though, we have to ask ourselves, okay, what exactly do we want to render out? Do we want to include everything? Do we just want to include certain tracks? In that case, we could mute the tracks that we don't want or solo the tracks that we do want. And what about the range? Do we want it from the beginning until the end of the song, or just a portion? For that, we could use the loop functionality or use some markers. Well, in this case, I'm just going to keep it simple. I want to export absolutely everything, and I'm going to use the loop functionality to indicate that. Okay, so let's create a little loop like so. Okay, and now we're ready to export. Okay, now to export, let's first go up here to Song and Export Mixdown. Okay, now let's first take a look at Export Range. As I mentioned, I created a loop. Between loop is selected, and that means that everything within that loop will be included into the file that we're about to create. Okay, now there are some other options. I'm not going to go over them right now. I'll probably do another video specifically on exporting audio from Studio One. For now, what is most relevant is the format. So as you can see, WAV file is selected. The question was, how do we export an mp3 file? So let's open the drop-down menu and go to the bottom and select mp3 file. Okay, now let's simply click OK, and it's going to render, and automatically the folder where it's rendering it to is opened. So this is the file we've just created, and let's just listen. Okay, so that's it. So that's how you convert a MIDI file to an MP3 file using Studio One. Okay, hope this helps. Thanks for watching.